Thank you very much, Chair Britt, and I look forward to working with you and Ranking Member Murphy in this Congress. Madam Secretary, as Senator Murphy mentioned in his opening statement, Secretary Noem, under your leadership, we have seen you ignore our appropriation laws, our Constitution, common sense, and even basic humanity. And like a lot of Americans, I really have been horrified by the lawlessness and incompetence and cruelty that we have all witnessed. And for all the talk about going after criminals, you have sidetracked DHS staff who are investigating drug dealers, terrorists, human traffickers. And rather than photo ops, we need more of your focus on providing basic diligence, because your crackdown has roped in American citizens and people who are here legally with no criminal record. Now, I'm not going to ask you whether that was right or wrong. I know it's wrong. The world knows it's wrong. And I think the first thing the history is going to say about your leadership is that you were responsible for many of these travesties. So I'm deeply concerned. You've deported a 4-year-old U.S. citizen with cancer. You've disappeared people to a notorious prison in El Salvador. And you have spent $100 million in taxpayer dollars to air TV ads thanking President Trump. That is really reckless. It's unacceptable, and in my opinion, can't continue. The American people are paying for this with our taxpayer dollars and with their most basic rights. Now, in the last 3 months, you have frozen or canceled over $100 billion in funding that was approved by Congress, bipartisan. We are talking about everything from disaster relief to grants that keep people safe. But when my staff has requested information on the status of this unacceptable holdup, the department failed to provide any acceptable justification. This illegal freeze, and it is illegal, is taking a real toll on communities who are waiting on the investments that Congress has delivered. So will you commit to immediately unpausing these funds?
Well, Senator, thank you for covering a lot of topics there. Let me touch on a few of those right away.
Well,
what the Trump administration is doing is enforcing the law for the first time. Under the Biden administration,
I'm asking you about the funds.
Illegal aliens were prioritized over American citizens. Now the scales of justice have been leveled, and
Madam
no one
Chair,
is treated better than anyone else.
I asked you a
Citizens are treated the same,
Madam
and these
Secretary,
illegal aliens and criminals are being
deported. I heard
deported.
it previously. I'm asking you a specific
The grants that you are referencing,
Correct.
The grants that you are referencing have been paused and reevaluated to make sure that they are truly being spent in the way to which they were appropriated.
Well,
many of these grants were being diverted
Madam
into
Secretary,
things they were never intended
These funds were passed on a bipartisan basis by members.
Absolutely, and the Biden administration perverted them in how they used them, diverted them to facilitate illegal immigration, to house people in places like the Roosevelt Hotel who held illegal criminals that took the life
Madam
of
Chair,
Laken
about
Riley.
$100 billion. It is not credible to me that all the recipients
who have died
of
and
that,
lost their children because
Madam
of this
Secretary,
situation.
it is not credible. Madam Chair, it is not credible that $100 billion is used to break the law. That just cannot be true. And let me change this a little bit. On the other hand, I am very concerned that DHS is now dramatically overspending funding that Congress has not provided. If you were a CEO doing that, I don't think you'd be in your job long. We need accountability and we need answers. And that includes informative responses to oversight questions sent to the department over the last 3 months. I am ranking member on this committee. I have worked with every member of this committee. We take our responsibility serious to fund your department and others. We need to have answers. We need to have accountability. And we need to make sure you're not overspending money that you were not allocated.
Well, thank you for that question. I will be very clear in the fact. Do you want me to respond?
Well, you can.
Well, I've worked many jobs in my life, but I also have been a CEO. I've run businesses. I've been a governor.
Your credentials. I'm questioning your spending.
We are prioritizing where our security needs are in this country, and we are hoping that this body will agree that reconciliation is necessary to address the things that have been neglected in this country for too long, that we have the technology upgrades, the manpower upgrades that are necessary. So the $170 billion request for the Department of Homeland Security is incredibly
my time is running
to make
out,
sure we have the tools
I do have a couple of additional questions. The fact is that you've not been given this funding. Saying that it's going to come in reconciliation that has not passed is not an acceptable answer. I did want to ask about FEMA and disaster relief. This is really important. A lot of disaster relief has been politicized. You've endorsed eliminating FEMA outright. We have seen an upheaval at FEMA that is going to put lives in jeopardy. 1 in 5 FEMA employees have been pushed out, taking this administration's so-called buyout offer. We are losing indispensable staff just weeks away from fire and hurricane season, and over $100 billion in disaster relief and FEMA grants are still being held up. DHS is making it a lot harder to qualify for relief, something people in my home state of Washington are experiencing firsthand. Multiple requests from governors have been rejected in recent weeks, including a request from our state. And we haven't been given any response about this. And I'm watching this and I'm thinking, has President Trump directed you to prioritize funding for Republican states?
Absolutely not.
Have you directed your staff to prioritize funding to Republican-led states over Democratic
Absolutely
states?
not. Under this administration, there will not be any politicization of support, relief, FEMA assistance, or grants given based on politics.
Well,
every single person will be treated the same. It will be very different than the Biden
Madam Secretary, there's a clear trend of Republican-led states getting very fast responses and funding.
This wasn't just another Senate hearing. What you saw was a serious test of how our democracy handles power and the law. Senator Patty Murray wasn't there for catchy lines. She came to confront an administration that has blurred the line between governing and political payback. When she looked Kristi Noem in the eye and said, "You deported a 4-year-old American citizen with cancer," it wasn't a talking point. It was a direct moral charge. That single fact shows how a system can lose its basic sense of humanity. Think about that. The Secretary of Homeland Security, sworn to uphold the law, overseeing policies so chaotic and reckless that a terminally ill child, born in the United States, could be sent to another country like a piece of paperwork. That isn't policy. It's cruelty built into the process. Then there's the money. More than $100 billion disaster relief and recovery funds have been frozen, blocked, or delayed, not because of a hurricane or wildfire, but because of politics. Congress already approved this funding on a bipartisan basis. It was supposed to rebuild homes after wildfires, help communities after hurricanes, and keep small towns alive. Yet under Noem, that money is stuck in bureaucratic limbo, reevaluated for alleged misuse. Let's call that what it is, weaponized obstruction. Holding relief funds hostage that were meant for disaster victims is not fiscal responsibility. It's punishment disguised as oversight. It sends a message: loyalty is rewarded and defiance is costly. Senator Murray's frustration isn't about party. It's about the Constitution. She is, in effect, asking, who gave you the power to rewrite the law? Because that's what's happening. The power to allocate funds belongs to Congress. When a cabinet secretary decides alone what to freeze and what to spend, it undermines the separation of powers that keeps our democracy intact. And this isn't about a single budget line or one stalled grant. It's about the slow, steady acceptance of executive overreach, small decisions that pile up until power stops following the law and the law starts following power. Murray's questions bring that into the open. She asks whether Republican-led states are getting faster FEMA approvals while Democratic states wait. Noem denies it, but the pattern Murray describes is clear. Some governors get green lights, others hit delays. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a political filter applied to disaster aid. That's alarming because it means something basic has changed. Disaster relief, which should be urgent, nonpartisan, and focused on people, is being run through a political lens. Your vote could affect how quickly your town gets help after a fire or a flood. Murray's calm but firm tone explains why that's unacceptable. She isn't only standing up for her state or her party. She's standing up for the core idea that government serves everyone, not just people who flatter those in power. Noem's answers tell their own story. We hear phrases like, "We're reevaluating," "We're prioritizing," and "We're ensuring accountability." They sound lawful, but they're being used to do the opposite. That's bureaucratic gaslighting, using official language